Hello everybody, how you doing? Lord PeteyTV here to give you some walkthroughs. So here in Lord PeteyTV Plays, we're going to be talking to you all about, our Mythic Pluses we're going to be running here. We're going to be running multiple different classes, for instance, Druid, Monk, Priest, Rogue, just to name a few. We're going to try to get as many of them done as possible, and we're going to kind of give you some commentary just so that you have an idea of what's going on. So thank you very much, and keep an eye on us, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hello, everyone, and this is going to be week 8 of our Mythic Pluses, and this is going to be taking on Tyrannical, Volcanic, and Sanguine. Now, I think this is important to know and how to kind of go through things, so I want to make sure I kind of go through everything as possible as I can tell you, and I greatly appreciate you all hanging out. Now, during these first polls around of Murazond's Rise, we end up trying to make sure when we're pulling, we try to pull, two groups at a time to continue to work through them. And as we're going through, we're actually DPSing backwards, and the reason for that is because of the Sanguine. We want to make sure that we're getting as much Sanguine as possible behind us so that we're not initially dealing with any of the healing factors. Now, with every other pull approximately on this first platform, you're going to be dealing with a larger, more stronger mob, and you kind of want to make sure you're separating those with the others because they will cause a lot of problems to your group. So keep an eye on that as you're going through, and just pull your groups accordingly. Now, I actually normally pull Maiden earlier than this. I don't know why I decided to go left, but I decided to go left. I would say and advise people to go right. The reason for that is because after you kill the two on that side, Maiden and the other individual, they end up spawning tier, and actually a timer will start. So it's better to actually start by pulling this side first. Now, the hardest thing that I will say about Time Sword Maiden here is that the Orb of Contention will actually target the farthest player, which will end up causing them to needing to dodge them. So make sure you dodge them accordingly so you do not get DPS or hurt by that. And then after that, you're going to continue. And now, see, as you can tell, we had to wait for the RP to continue and finish up. Now, one of the hardest things with tier is positioning for the DPS. Now, the reason why I'm going to say that is because of there's one certain ability called the Infinite Annihilation. But other than that, Sparks of Tear, what ends up happening is that your healer has the ability to dispel one and not the other, followed by the Divided Strikes, which everyone really wants to get in, even the person who has the debuff. Now, there is the Infinite Annihilation. As you can tell, they put all that stuff on the ground. All that stuff on the ground is going to cause, everything to kind of move faster later on. Then the tank is going to get hit with that Titanic Blow. It's going to kill anyone behind you, so make sure you have nobody behind you there. And then after that, you have your Infinite Annihilation. Once you're kind of completed going through that whole rotation, you're going to end up having to deal with the orbs that are going to come out from siphoning the Earth Stone or Orb Stone, whatever you want to call it, Oath Stone. So normally you want to get 5 stones, or I should say stolen time fragments per person. Tank really doesn't need to. The healer should really get it, and the DPS, because it's going to increase your time frame. Now, the thing you're going to want to make sure you watch while you're going through this is your placement of of everything. And it really does cause some issues with our group here because we didn't have enough people there for the ability. And now here we're going to kind of go into resing, and then we got to keep an eye. Now, Titanic Blow is going to happen. Thankfully, our DPS moved out of the way, and we end up continuing to DPS and going around. See, that is like a perfect annihilation, or I should say one of the closest perfect as possible. And then we're just going to keep going for it, and then we just go back into the O-Stone rotation, and we're just going to continue to do that until we end up taking down the boss. He's the hardest part about this fight is that you need to make sure you grab those oath stones that are going to hit the center, because if you don't, they do massive amounts of damage, especially on a Tyrannical week. You can actually pull tier closer to the middle of the room so you can help DPS them as you're grabbing oath stones. That's more of an advanced ability or I should say advanced tactic you're going to want to use. but you really don't need to do it. So it's just something to think of. All right. And we end up DPSing him down, and we don't really have a problem for the rest of the fight. So thankfully, we get him down.
I appreciate you turtling right there.
I saw.
13%.
I audibly gasped at that.
With Cider jumping off the side?
Yeah.
Like a fucking loon, yeah?
Did I die? What did I die? I can't peek out in there again.
Jack, you good? Now, this pull right here with the Infinite Watchkeeper and the Marauder, what you're going to want to make sure you keep an eye out for is the cast that the Timeline Marauder does. That actually ends up being a buff to everybody and putting a shield on them, which causes a lot of problems. So you're going to want to keep an eye on them and make sure you interrupt it as you go through. Since it is a tyrannical week, these guys die super quick, which is great because they're really annoying to deal with, but just keep an eye on them, and, you know, they die pretty quickly. Soon after those guys go down, this is the gauntlet portion of the dungeon where everyone has to run through. So what you're going to end up wanting to run through is make sure you're not getting hit by the orbs and getting towards the end. Now, over time, you know, you kind of start to realize that there is a pattern and you can end up missing a lot of stuff. So I have not, you know, been able to figure that out. I do a lot of, you know, ducking and moving to try to get missed from getting hit and so on and so forth. I also feel like there's a little bit of a latency in between that also. So be very, very careful when you're going through that. Once you get through, you can open up a portal and help your friends, as you saw there. Now, these two guys here, there is two different dragons, one on the left, one on the right. You're going to want to end up targeting the right one first because it has actually a less amount of damage. I should say not damage, less amount of HP. You end up taking it, burning it down, and then ending up going through. They're not too difficult to kill on tyrannical weeks, but when it comes to fortified weeks, you have to be really, really careful. Now, there's some special tactics that I've ended up using for pulling these groups in the center. Now, what I've started to do was I ended up pulling the center first and kind of making almost like a little bit of a line and producing almost like a T in how the sand is done. The reason for that is that it seems like it's the clearest and easiest line to go through. You can pull both sides as you're going through. You can definitely kill the Rift Mages as you're running through. So that's, you know, the easiest thing to do. Now, as you're kind of pulling, you have to be really, really aware of over pulling here because you can over pull like I did in getting myself killed or getting the team wiped. So just be very, very careful of that. As I start pulling, I try to get as much as I can. Those are the dudes that are going to end up, you know, destroying the sand for you. So there is the Time Mage, who you have to pretty much kill all the Time Mages and open up both sides. Once you can end up getting that done, it works out super, super well. Are you looking to support the channel? Please make sure you go to our merch store. The link is in the comments below. We have mugs, shirts, lots of cool, cool things that we will love you to purchase and be wearing and supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it, and thank you so much. Make sure you end up checking out our other channels. We have a sister channel called Gaming Fire with Lord PeteyTV, which we end up giving you some specific gaming news that is popping up here and there throughout the whole entire week. And then make sure you're also checking out our Stories with Lord PeteyTV, where we end up giving you little short stories that he's handwritten throughout the whole entire week, which we think you'll greatly appreciate. Thank you so much, and check those out. And hit the subscribe button here when you are ready. we start taking the sides down by going after the time lost battlefield. And the reason for that is because it is probably one of the most annoying fights in this whole entire dungeon. So what we end up doing is we end up trying to, separate them all and kill all these mobs here. Be very careful of that mana ray because it can put an ability out where you could actually help DPS other people in the group. Now, the destroyers you have to really, really be careful of because that molten fire can end up putting a lot of damage on one individual. So you're going to want to be really, really careful of that. You're also going to want to be careful of those sappers. If you get too many of those sappers on you, you're going to get too much damage on that individual, and that individual will die. So you really want to, if you're going to take the damage, make sure you separate it as you're going through. Now, we try to separate as much damage as we can going through this process, and we end up taking those guys down. Note how they still drop sanguine. Once those guys die, you're going to have another 3 guys that spawn up, and you're going to want to take them. You're going to have pretty much 2 raiders and a farseer. Be careful because one of them does heal, so you got to make sure you watch those heals throughout the whole entire time. And as you can see, I'm kind of moving backwards only because of the earthquakes in addition to the heals that they're doing.
I'm gonna pull.
As for this boss, both of them, both alliance.
I will
and
say
Horde
this.
side are
Unfortunately,
pretty
I
much
have.
exactly the same. So what you end up doing with the bosses is you end up.
See,
killing the
I have a
bosses, and
huge
then you
issue
end up
with
pulling them to one side, and you DPS them down.
like if
The
I
things
start
you wanna make
getting
sure you end up aiming
what's the
for
word I'm looking
is
for?
the ranged attackers, meaning
Scared?
the axe throwers.
Like if I
or
start getting like
the
nervous
bowmen,
about
you want to
something happening
prioritize them and kill them
with the
first.
heals,
And you want to make
I'll
sure
start
you
going
do
into
not
this like
stand in the center.
frenzy of
If you stand in the center, it means you're going to end up killing a
what's it
couple of
called?
those mobs that are in the center, which is not
Just like a
good
straight up
because it ends
frenzy
up
of flash
putting a buff
heals.
on the boss. The buff on the boss means that the tanks are going to get hit
The
with more
panic
damage,
hits you.
earthquakes are
Yeah.
going to hit more, or I should say the shockwaves are going to hit more, and everything
Before
else
it used to be
hits
Shadow.
more,
What
and
was
you
it called?
just don't
Shadow
want
Moon.
that. So you want to stand more towards the sides, and you want to run or towards the entrance or exit of this, this area, so that you end up not taking that damage. Once you end up taking that damage, I should say, once you end up DPSing properly and holding, for me, I'm holding aggro properly. It's
Blade
not too
Storm,
bad.
Cider.
That Blade Storm is what's really going to kill your group, so be very, very careful of that.
What'd you do? Oh. Axe thrower far. Watch frontal.
I did not see that coming toward me.
You did not see Garage Hellscream running at your face?
No, I was trying to interrupt the warlock.
Sorry, I'm currently playing a top-down. All I saw was the boss spinning away.
A little bit more. Must be.
Our main objective when we're trying to go from Thomas Battlefield to Morchi is to dodge. Now, the reason why I say that is because these dudes here are very, very scary. So I try to make sure I dodge them, we kind of go through, and then we make sure that we don't pull the other side also. We try to make sure that we kind of just end up doing that because it's easier for everyone.
I have no hate on
So how do you keep yourself hydrated over those long gaming sessions? Here at Lord PeteyTV, we end up using Rogue energy drinks. That is what we use here. We end up drinking those throughout the whole entire sessions. Please make sure you go there and use Lord PeteyTV at checkout when you end up purchasing some of those amazing drinks.
Yeah, we can run past these guys and then go call Ash and go. Ash, you stop past these dudes and start marching.
Now, the Infinite Time Bender has a couple of really, really good things that
Well,
can
cider right through the
happen
middle.
with it. If you end up notice, it'll
That's fine.
actually path to one side or the other,
Straight
and
pitch.
when it ends up doing that, it'll end up giving you enough space to run through. Sometimes
It's
you
all now.
end up pulling it, sometimes you don't. As you can
Just
see, I
decide.
accidentally pulled it, so I just died. So we all just take a quick death, and then at that point, we have our healer just rest us
I
on
don't
the
know why you
side,
can't
and we kind of just go for it.
because
People might
This
say
is
that
my
it's
camera?
not really a super huge time save.
I'm
But for
pulling.
us, you know, it's just easy because that's just an annoying.
You could have just said you forgot that you had camo.
So when we go into Morchi, the main thing as a tank
yeah,
for
so now
myself,
that
I try to
admit
make
that I
sure
haven't
is I
played this
try to make
class
sure
in
that I
3
take
weeks.
Sandblast and point them away because they will one
Do you
shot
hear that?
anyone that's behind me.
Excuses?
Now, I don't normally keep him, I should say her, off to the edge,
sir.
but I end up trying to
5,
keep it at some
4,
type of safe
3,
distance.
2,
All of us kind of call
1.
out and
The
mark
tree's
where
gonna
the
burn.
target is, and we end up running to that part of the boss. If we have a problem running to that side, we actually try to run towards an
look
edge
who's making
because
tell yourself jokes
the
now.
blast that comes off of
Oh my
Morchi is
God.
actually a cone, not a
That was a
huge
couple
area
years ago
effect.
now. We can
That
joke
way
about
it's
that.
easier for us
Yes.
to deal with. The time
You
traps
have a
are
new
actually
tree.
going to be used
Homicide
for
and
the
shit.
familiar faces.
You have a new
so
tree now.
when we
We
see
can
those
make
time
fun of
traps go
that
down, we
tree.
kind of make sure that we place ourselves in a location so that we don't have to worry about the fixations or anything else.
Be very
that's coming up
careful
in the future.
here.
Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's actually a dot that is placed on to everybody,
Root mine.
and during tyrannical weeks, it is really a
Not
deadly
killing the
dot.
trap.
So you really want to take the mobs themselves and you want to separate them so not all of them
Square.
are taking damage at
5,
the same time.
4,
Or I should say
3,
that dot stacks, so you're
1.
having problems
Get to
with
the
it.
side.
So we end up going to the side and we end up dealing with that accordingly.
Oh. Gotcha. I'm okay.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Not gonna lie, I didn't realize what phase we were in. All right.
As I was saying before, since we accidentally pulled those mobs, thankfully Ash is able to stealth past them. We all just run off to the side and die unless people can pop past it. And then at that point, what will end up happening is they will end up just, you know, unlocking the next area, and then we just teleport into the next area. As always, just wanted to make sure you know we partner with Sub2R for our gamer glasses, our green screens, our camera mounts, our cameras, all of those enjoyable objects that we end up using while streaming for our long gaming sessions to help increase our quality of our streams. So make sure you use Lord PeteyTV at sub2r.com when you end up going there and purchasing some of this amazing gear. This pull is very similar to the one before the gauntlet, and the reason for that is because you have two mortars to deal with, and then you also have the, you know, the infinite slayer. So we just try to make sure that we're continuing to make sure those interrupts go off, and if you get those interrupts down, they're pretty quick. And then after that, you're gonna go, you know, right after the infinite slayer and end up taking them down. It's not that difficult to deal with. It's just more of a nuisance and annoyance.
I'm going up to 21st.
I'm
I
gonna
Now
grab.
for Chrono Lord,
Gonna grab-
the
gonna
way
be on the
I
far
would
side.
say is we end up taking care of him.
Opposite side that we
is that
normally
we end up making
do
sure
this
that
on.
we
Healing on my
end up
monk.
just DPS them down appropriately.
4,
We
Let's
assign,
do
you know, the infinite
2,
orbs to
1.
our individuals. This time,
Ash,
we
you and-
only have
you and
Ash
Shammer
in
have-
range,
have
so
them.
She just takes care of all the orbs. and everybody
Yeah, I'm
just
just
takes
trying to
care
get
of
a consistent
dealing
group
with the
together
boss
of
themselves.
people
We try to put some
who are
damage on the boss now, so we don't have to deal with it later.
Five,
But the most
having
important thing
a-
is we make sure we are
two,
DPSing
one.
those
Like
keepers.
one,
The keepers are what pretty much
somebody
keep
doesn't
this
show
whole entire,
next week.
you know,
Shows
encounter locked down.
Consistencies.
So we end up taking
It's all
care
about
of that, and we
consistencies
go
this
from there.
season, I feel like.
Now, while we're taking care of the Chrono Lord, we end up
Five,
making sure that we keep an
four,
eye for the
Cider, I
two
haven't seen
infinite
you on it.
keepers.
Yeah.
The two infinite
He always
keepers
is,
will
he's
stay
just
on this
invisible.
side. Now, being that it is a tyrannical league, I would highly recommend
You
that
don't
you
jump
have
in
your healer
chat.
kind of drop a couple of
You
pots
No.
on you, or make sure you're full health
He
before
doesn't do
that
any of that to
keeper
me
dies.
either.
Once that keeper dies,
Like,
you kind
I
of
get
want
0
your
hearts
the rest
from
of
you.
your DPS to
two,
run to the far
one.
side. So I try to get as many stacks as
can't
I
whisper
possibly
it.
can
I can't
of
whisper an
my
offline
brews in
person.
place, and then after that I end up, using Celestial Brew while they're gone, as she runs and goes to take care of the keepers on the other side.
Meow.
Four,
So now that the other two
three,
keepers
Alright.
have gone, I make sure that I tank them appropriately. After that is done, I kind of continue forward. Once the Chrono Lord ends up leaving, I go over and kind of help grab as much aggro as I
Alright.
possibly can off of the other two mobs, get them taken
We
care
got
of, get
3
them out of the way.
minutes. Gotta get this done.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect time to lust, because I'm the only one who can hit him.
So once the
go.
Chrono
Add
Lord
those meters.
is, the keepers are taken down, the Chrono Lord will come down. We end up taking him, we pull him
I
to the
had to
side,
catch up somehow.
and then we either go clockwise or counterclockwise through the
Five,
room.
Shooting a gun
So
is
we end up
hilarious.
doing that and
Three,
try to keep our,
two, 1.
our
saw that, right?
ourselves as we're going around the room. The infinite orbs are, pretty easy for Ash to
gives
kind
me
of deal
30
with, so we
DPS.
kind of just deal with those, and we just go around the room accordingly. So we end up keeping an eye and go from there. Now, the most important thing is kind of just go through
Thanks,
and
Cider.
deal with those as we're running.
Watch.
5,
Sometimes the
four,
front will end up hitting us in a weird spot,
two,
but we
one.
end up dealing with it. So we end up just going
No,
through
no, you
around
play
the room,
something
and we end up
right in
taking the
front of
boss down.
me.
It's not too difficult
So I had to
once
move
you get
again,
to
and I was dapped, yeah.
understand how this fight works, the mechanics, and also the dropping of the orbs. So once all that's taken care of, we are in the clear and all is good.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go. What?
5,
Tree with gun.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Looks like I have the
Thank you so much for
dance
checking out our
too.
video here, and make sure you are checking us out on our other channels. For instance, Twitch, we're there every single Monday through Friday, and our sister channel, Gaming Fire. And make sure that you end up, hitting those follow buttons and subscribe buttons, and supporting the channel, so on and so forth. Now, we have videos coming out every single
4,
week here, how-to
done.
videos, and either
One.
other games that we end up playing. So make sure you end up checking those out.
you go.
I appreciate and love all the support. Dream big, keep gaming, and have a fantastic rest of your week. Bye, everybody.